He does a real good job with his hands, always has. Um, we saw that at Arkansas, and Coach Bielema, did a great job there with defeating blockers and using his hands in pass rush and tackling and batting down balls, things like that. He's got good hands, quick hands. It's a good job.
Does that remind you of anyone, or is it unique to Trey? You have a unique style?
Yeah, Trey's got a little bit of different style, but it's very effective. A lot of different, we all have different strengths and weaknesses and different makeup, but he knows what he can do, and he does it pretty effectively and match up against most guys, find some way to handle or be competitive with. Mm-hmm.
Coach, only about half the teams in the league carry a fullback. Obviously, you guys have a good one in James. Just curious schematically what having a fullback on the roster brings to the team.
Well, I think it's just a fundamental schematic thing, and if you want that aspect of it, of putting a guy really that could go either way in a formation, then that's good. If you don't, then that's fine too. There's other ways to do it. So creates different blocking angles, creates a different balance in your offense. There's a lot of other ways to do it too. It's it's hard to have everything.
When did the fullback position start to shift from being more of a ball carrier and pass catcher to more of a blocking option?
I'd say in the 70s in college football, really, I formation. McKay and people like that, and then certainly by the 80s, you had one runner, so the one-back teams with Coach Gibbs and Coryell and people like that, Mike Martz and so forth. Those guys all went to one runner, and the blocker was the blocker, so that became, instead of a fullback, sometimes tight end. It was really in the 60s with the Jim Browns and Jim Taylor and really all the, Blyer and Harris are probably the last kind of, actually Harris, carried the ball more than probably Blyer did. And they weren't really an I formation team, but I'd say it kind of transitioned from there. And then, when Simpson and guys like that came into the league, the guys they put in front of them, with Simpson, they put two guards in front of him. Seymour was the tight end, Braxton was the fullback, and they were both offensive linemen basically. And so they you knew who was getting the ball, and rather than have another ball carrier back there, they just had another, I would say, basically an offensive lineman. So, but whether he carries the ball or doesn't carry the ball, the blocking angles from the backfield are different than they are from the line of scrimmage, and the ability to build a four-man surface or a three-man surface after the snap is different than being in a four-man surface and then trying to get to a three-man surface, or being in a three-man surface and trying to get to a four-man surface, by running the guy all the way across the ball. It's just there's different blocking angles, and so it's just a fundamental difference.
What have you seen from the Titans defense that's made them so effective in the red zone?
Well, they're good everywhere. They're good in the red area. They're good on third down. They don't give up big plays. They don't give up points. They're very good fundamentally, as Mike was as a player, and Dean, I know is a strong fundamental coach. Mike's a strong fundamental coach, so they have good run force. They have good tackling. Their corners tackle well. Malcolm, Logan, Jackson, those guys all tackle so as good, if not better, than most corners in the league as a group. So they limit the yards after catch. But they're just sound and disciplined and consistent. They mix it up. It's not, they don't have a crazy spin the wheel defense, but they do enough things to keep you off balance between post, single, high safeties, split safeties, man, zone, pressure, and you just gotta string good plays together consistently, block the front, which is a problem, and it's hard to do it over any kind of extended period of time, and it's hard to get them for big plays where you don't have to do it once. there's not many of those, so that's why they don't give them many points. But yeah, they're good in the run area. It's hard to run the ball in, and they mix their coverages down there. And again, they make you earn every yard. They don't get many penalties, so you don't get a lot of second chances on cheap 5-yard illegal contact penalties and stuff like that. They give you cheap first downs. You got to go out there and earn it against them. They're pretty stingy.
Seems like every week we're talking about a mobile quarterback. How would you, I guess, what kind of mobile quarterback is Mariota? Does he compare at all in his movement to anyone else you faced this year?
It's fast. It's fast. So, yeah, it runs a lot of people. He's quick. He's athletic. He's fast and athletic. So, Trubisky's a big, strong kid. Watson, Bortles, Mariota's, I would say, faster and more athletic than they are.
Which contact you have with Rashawn Evans in the pre-draft process, and what have you seen from him this year?
Yeah, we saw him. We saw him in Alabama. He visited here. Yeah, good player. Played outside, played inside. Obviously, he's playing inside for Tennessee. But he has a lot of experience in doing both. So playing outside linebacker, pass rushing, good blitzer. Moved inside his last year in 17, and good range, good tackler, tough kid.
Seems like every week James White's been productive, passing game, running game, whatever. So I asked Mike Rabel whether he had any plans to stop James. And I wonder, he said he hopes. I wonder how hard is it to game plan for a guy like James? I know you don't have to, but he's stepping into Mike's shoes this week.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Mike, sure Mike will have a good plan for defending us, period. And I'm sure he feels like he has to defend a lot of players. Certainly James is one of them. But yeah, we'll see what Mike comes up with on that. We got our own problems with Henry and Dion in that group. So again, a lot of it comes down to good fundamentals, good tackling, good leverage. You can't keep a back from getting the ball. When they hand him the ball, he has it. It's different than completing a pass to a receiver. So when they hand him the ball, then you have to be able to have leverage on the play, and you have to be able to tackle him. So in the end, it's going to come down to that, like it does with just about every back.
With the back, though, James, I think, is averaging like 9 yards per reception. Receivers tend to average more than that. So is it a matter of, like, distributing your assets because one guy is less of a threat to make a bigger play, or how does that work, sort of from?
Yeah. Right. You got 11, they got 11, and figure out, you put two guys on one, then you got 9 against 10. So yeah, you just have to figure out how you want to, what you have and what you're trying to stop, and you usually have 2 or 3 options. Maybe have all, or maybe pick out the best one and go with that. I don't know. Again, that's a question for Mike. Couldn't really answer that.
What similarities do you see, either schematically or just the way they play between the Titans and your team?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really just focused on what they do, trying to stop them, try to move the ball against them, try to compete against them in the kicking game. So I don't know.
The attention to fundamentals that you mentioned earlier.
They're very good at it. Yeah, they're a very good fundamental team. They play with good techniques. They don't have many bad plays. It's hard to move the ball on them. They're sound. They don't give it big plays. They don't have penalties. You got to block them. You got to get open. You got to protect the passer. There's not a lot of freebies out there. You got to work hard for what you get against their defense.
Coach, with Cordero at running back, especially on those outside runs, do you see any similarities between maybe some of the blocking he gets on those tosses to what he would get in the kicking game as a kick returner?
Okay. I mean, it's a little bit different. But running the ball, still running the ball. You try to set your blocks up so that the defenders, you help your blockers by placing the defenders by the angle that you carry the ball, and then try to get into space. You know, kickoff coverage are all coming down basically at the same time. Defensively, it's not exactly the way it's set up. It's a little bit different. So depends on the play, depends on the blocking pattern, depends on what happens after the snap, where guys go. But separately from that, you have the ball, you're reading blockers in front of you and trying to place defenders so that the blockers can block them and run to the space that either blockers create or that you create based on the way you run the ball. So, yeah, that's the same.
Two more questions? Obi Melifonwu, is he a player who might have some versatility, or do you guys mostly just view him as a safety?
Yeah, we'll see. It's a good question. Yeah, we'll see. We really have only had him for a couple days, so we'll see how it goes. He has good size. He's smart. He learns quickly. He's athletic. We'll see what he can do. I don't know. Possibly.
Final question?
Bill, the players come in with primarily a special teams focus, and that's primarily the role they serve in the team. Are they easier to assimilate within a week or two upon arriving here, as opposed to someone who might specifically play strictly on offense or defense?
Yeah, it'll probably depend on what their role is on offense or defense. But, I mean, the kicking game's is pretty involved. I mean, it's not just, it's a place kicker or a snapper. I mean, that's one thing. But you're talking about kick coverage or punt protection or punt and kick returns. Yeah, I'd say there's a little more to it than that. So depends on, again, it would depend on the player's role and his experience and how familiar what he's done in the past is with what you're doing now. So that's part of the process that we have to go through when we bring a player onto the team, try to see what things are similar to what he's done, how well he does them, what things are new, how to teach him those things, how much of it's on the field, how much of it's off the field, how much of it's obviously working with other people. It's not just a single person matchup out there. There are a lot of single matchups, but those matchups are affected by what other people do or how the coverage unfolds or how the rush unfolds and punt protection, things like that. So it's working with your teammates and making sure that communication, the calls, and also the fundamentals and techniques are consistent with the guys that you're working with so that you can handle the multiples that we have to handle. I mean, a team like last week, Green Bay, that had probably 7, 8 different punt formations just going into the game. And then there was a new one in the game. It's just don't go out there and just start playing on the punt return. I mean, there's a lot of things you have to cover as a team schematically to be sound, or you're not going to have a good play. So, and I'd say most of the players on our team, with very few exceptions, all have roles in the kicking game, regardless of what their role is offensively or defensively. So I know nobody really cares about those roles, especially as backup players in the kicking game, but as a coach, and especially as a special teams coach, somebody has to back up the 66 spots that you have on special teams. I mean, somebody has to back them up. You just can't go into a game and not have people behind the guys who are playing. So if you lose a guy who's on every special team, then you've lost, let's call it, at least 4 starters, if not more. And so then you need 4 somebody's, maybe one person, which is unlikely that he would be able to back up all 4 spots, or 4 somebody's to back up those 4 spots on the various big 4 units. And then that's when the real wheel starts spinning pretty fast. So you got 46 active players, you got 3 specialists, you got a couple quarterbacks, you got 7 linemen, you got, I don't know, call it 6, 7 defensive linemen. So now you're getting down, you don't have very many players left, and you're already talking about a lot of those players being out there anyway. So when you start talking about starting players as backup roles in the kicking game, like those are important roles and are important players for us. again, not that anybody really cares until something happens and the player has to go out there, but as a coach, that's something you have to prepare and plan for. And so it's, again, pretty unusual for any of our players to not have a role in the kicking game. And then when you get into other things like the hands team, which is another thing nobody cares about until it comes up. Then when it comes up, it's the most important play in the game. That's another thing that you better be able to do right, or it's going to cost you a game. So again, a lot of times those roles do fall to starting players on that particular team. So I would just say that the overall crossover and complement of offensive or defensive players and their role in the kicking game is pretty substantial for the 46 players that are at the game, because there's a lot of roles that have to be filled, and then there's a lot that all have to be backed up. And unfortunately, we just don't know when you're going to need it, so you have to have it at every spot. And if you don't have it, then that's where you end up having punts blocked and kicks returned for touchdowns and mishandled balls and so forth. So,
how many deep are you at most special teams positions? How many people do you coach into each one?
well, I would say generally 2, and obviously some people back up more than one spot. So one guy might have a couple spots on one side of the line. One guy might have the tackle spots, left or right tackle. I mean, look, it depends on who the players are and what you have to work with and what they're comfortable doing or what their experience level is. So in some cases you have a backup for a backup. In some cases one guy's got a backup 2, or one guy's got a backup 3, or these 3 got a backup these 4 on the front line, or, well, maybe these 3 got to back up these 8 on the front line, or, however many, these 2 got to back up these 3 in the deep part on kickoff return. So it just, depends on what we're talking about here, and, what the position is and who the players are that are involved. But that's what it comes down to. You just don't have enough guys to have one for everybody. We don't have that at a lot of positions on offense or defense. So. And then obviously you have to have a backup kicker, you have to have a backup punter, you have to have a backup snapper, you have to have a backup everything, backup holder, so that something were to happen to those players, you gotta finish the game. So okay, go Cats, huh?